Well, all right, kiddos, it's time to sharpen up those edges and grease up your chains. We are going to live it up with mountain life. Dropping in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
What's up, mountain lifers? Happy spring, happy goggle tan season, happy here comes the sun. My name is Feet Banks, and this is a Live It Up with Mountain Life podcast. Thanks for tuning in. Also, don't give up on winter just yet. I remember skiing POW on May long weekend last year, but yes, it is time to start sprouting those seeds in the windowsill and oiling up your bike chains in the garage. And don't stress if you don't have a garage. Hey, these days where I live, even having a driveway is a huge flex. Used to be you needed a Lamborghini Countach to let everyone know you were disgustingly wealthy. Now all you need is a place to park it. All right, so climber, author, and professional coach and biohacker Adam Hart is on the show today. But first, did you catch Colin Field's pod a couple weeks ago with photographer Carrie Medig? Colin is an old hand here at Mountain Life, but that was his first kick at the podcasting can, and I think he's got the bug. Expect more from Colin coming down the pipe, and maybe with his help we can finally up the frequency of these suckers to 2 a month. I've only been promising that for about a year or so we'll see. Right now, though, let's hear from our friends over at Jack Wolfskin, makers of sustainable outdoor clothing, gear, and footwear. Hey, do you know about Jack Wolfskin? For almost 40 years, the Jack Wolfskin name and paw print have been a symbol of their trailblazing spirit and regard for nature. Inspired by an expedition in northern Canada in 1981, they have led the pack with innovative, eco-conscious technologies, a commitment to social responsibility, and forward-thinking outdoor apparel and equipment designs. If you haven't seen the Jack Wolfskin paw print before, it's because they've only just completed their newest den here in North America. Jack Wolfskin will see you in the wild, wherever that is for you. All right, so back to you, mountain lifers. How are you feeling? Did you drink your juice today? Are you still fighting that yeast? Did you cold plunge? Did you tell everyone you cold plunged? Are you taking your lion's mane? How about your cordyceps? You got your chia seeds? Don't worry if you don't. Adam Hart is on the show today, and he is going to help whip us into shape, physically, mentally, and in our soul's essence. A reformed couch potato, Adam is the author of a book called The Power of Food, 100 Essential Recipes for Abundant Health and Happiness. But these days, he puts most of his focus into helping people one-on-one, mostly busy parents, helping them find the flow, break bad habits, kick unhealthy behaviors, and overcome those sandbaggy mindsets in order to enhance the quality of life for themselves and their loved ones. None of this is my area of expertise, of course. I live more of a blow it if you got it kind of lifestyle. And the reason you don't see a neurology degree on my wall is not because it fell off, it's because I don't have one. But Adam's been working and studying and coaching people on this stuff for the last 15 years. And he was kind enough to stop by the studio here in Squamish to talk to me in person. So let's drop in with Adam Hart. Adam, I'm going to start by asking you the thing people always ask everyone. So what do you do?
Yeah, this is the big question, right? I essentially spend my time supporting busy parents to manage daily overwhelm and maintain their connection to nature and to their athletic pursuits.
Right. So a lot of athletes too, or I guess in this part of the world, we're recording in Squamish.
Yeah. Well, it's a lot of parents who just know that this is the lifestyle they want to have, and sport is part of that, whether it's rock climbing, mountain biking, skiing.
Yeah.
And there's an element of the daily responsibilities where there is a lack of consistent fulfillment in everything and wanting to get back to optimizing what that looks like.
And how long have you been doing that? Has it changed since the...
Yeah. First when I discovered it, and I'm sure we'll dive into the story, but it came from my outdoor pursuits myself. Yeah. And that got me into doing a lot of corporate wellness training, corporate performance training, and wasn't quite my thing, but it was where I needed to go to make a living doing this work. But over the years, I just got really immersed in my own community and working with people locally. Once they understood what I could do and the methodology behind it, there was a pretty big audience for it. And so it just made it easy for me to transition out of doing corporate wellness and just focus on the folks that are in my community.
Yeah. Yeah, well, we can jump a little bit ahead, but we should also go back. But you're a wellness specialist, mental health specialist, coach, not a clinical counselor, but a psychological health and safety advisor.
Yeah.
You've got a background in education.
Well, my background actually sociology,
Right?
and that's a big part of what got me into my own optimization was starting to look at human cultures related to adaptation and how modern society has kind of forced us into this way of living where we're losing our ability to adapt to the amount of stress we're under.
Right.
And so that kind of morphed where I started to focus on myself and then what I started to deliver to others.
Yeah, I read on the website, you were a self-proclaimed couch potato. Was that when you were living out here already? Or
No, so I had my occupational burnout moments in Toronto where I was, chasing what I was told is the societal dream.
Yeah, is that where you come from, Ontario?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and I got the degree, the postgraduate diploma, and went and got the house and the job, and but ended up in bad shape by my mid-20s. I was diagnosed ADHD in my teens, and told I was learning disabled. So I had a lot of self-esteem, self-worth, things going on.
And looking back, do you figure those were fair assessments, or was it something else going on? Do you think?
Yeah, that's a big discussion for sure. But it was a lot to do with my inability to manage my stress response to what was happening in my life.
Right. And your exposure to the outdoors in those days was at what level?
Minimum. I'd be playing road hockey outside every once in a while, and that was pretty much it. Maybe go run around in the ravine a little bit here and there. But
right. As a kid, like growing up?
Zero.
Right.
Yeah, zero. Ride the bike around the block kind of thing.
Right. It was a suburban Ontario life? Or?
Yep. Yeah. And, the divorced family and, me wanting to be the good boy, didn't want to, cause any trouble. So I stayed in my lane and tried to be good, but my escapes were watching horror movies and sugar.
Right.
That's kind of where I was getting my emotional relief from. And that led to when I had my occupational burnout, I was pre-diabetic at that time. I was overweight and struggling with depression, anxiety, all sorts of medication, and nothing I was being told around my mental health specifically was giving me any relief. And then that's when everything changed.
Right. And this would have been the 1990s? Or?
Well, this is, somewhere around 97-ish, 98.
Right.
And in sometime in 98 is when me and a buddy of mine were wandering around downtown Toronto. And, we both just didn't want to buy another gym membership. It was like, oh, my God, really? We're going to do this again? But we stumbled upon Joe Rockheads. And that was, 98. And after that, everything changed for me.
Right. And for those who don't know, that's an indoor climbing gym?
Yeah, the indoor rock climbing gym. That was kind of the first moment of connecting to something that gave me some relief.
Yeah.
And I kind of dove all in. I didn't know any other way to feel happy inside. And I knew when I would go and climb, and it didn't go well at first. I had the first time I ever, got strapped in there and was climbing up the holds, I had a panic attack halfway up. But there was something about it that said, wait a minute, there's something here that feels safe for me to explore into.
Right.
And I just wanted to keep going to continue to understand what it is that I'm doing that's giving me some relief from my mental anguish.
Yeah. So how long were you in the gym before you took it outside? And then what was that like to do it outdoors?
Yeah. Oof. Well, I got really lucky. I met a guy early on in the gym who, his name's Wolfgang. He actually lived out here for quite a while. But he had just immigrated from Colombia, and he was an outdoor climber. And so within 3 months or 4 months, he said, let me take you out. I'll take you to Rattlesnake, and I'll show you how to place gear. I was like, wow, okay, this is amazing. And he kind of took me under his wing. So I spent probably a full year in the indoor gym, and then I started to go outdoors. And he kept dragging me out, and I kept going. And I would say within a year, I started to trad lead. And had dreams of coming to Squamish because people would come back to the gym and talk about climbing the split pillar. And I was like, oh my God, I have to do that. And, the feeling that I was getting from climbing and not knowing at the time how it was supporting me to learn how to regulate my stress response in life.
Yeah.
I just wanted to pursue that. I wanted to understand, what am I doing climbing that's giving me all this beautiful life experience.
You recognize that something was different pretty quickly?
Oh yeah. Right. Yeah, right away. But I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know what it was, which is why I And I'm mindful of saying addiction, but it was. I just wanted to climb because I knew it was the only thing that gave me a relief from the self-esteem and self-worth and shame thoughts and, and the guilt that I had around what had happened to me health-wise, but also just in life in general.
I mean, that's something I've talked about a lot this year, in the context of, professional athletes out here, or, even, ex-professional athletes or people that are performing at a really high level, and sort of, sometimes at the detriment of other parts of their lives. And the idea was, just because you're outside and you're in good shape and you're breathing fresh air, that doesn't always mean it's healthy. Mm-hmm. Looking back on your climbing addiction, quote unquote, now, what are your thoughts on that kind of thing? Is like are you seeing that a lot in your practice now out here?
Oh yeah, I mean, there's a need for us to understand that in order to really engage with our health, and I call it intelligent health, we have to build a wellness community around us that's not just about our sport. We have to understand that, yes, at the foundation of who we are and how we exist is our relationship between how the nervous system and the brain interact with each other. And so sport is just one area that you can explore into that and learn how to optimize the performance of each of those. But if that's the only place that you're pushing those limits, there's still going to be opportunity for disruption in that engagement, but also in the other areas of your life, like sleep and nutrition and, your relationships. Are you optimizing in those? And if we're not understanding that there's actually a way to take what we're doing in the sporting world and bring that engagement to the other areas, you're just missing out.
Yeah. It's interesting because those conversations were not really being had in the 90s. I mean, part of going to the crag was drinking beer after smoking a joint, whatever, like eating whatever you want because you're living a healthy life, right? Yeah. And maybe without even knowing it, people are pushing their problems under the rug, and that shit compounds. I think of, Mario Lemieux back in the 80s smoking a cigarette at the NHL All-Star game in between periods. Yeah. Totally normal, right? Yeah. And now it feels like the athletes are, they started, when I say athletes, I sort of mean, the outdoor recreation people. Yeah. They started training. In the old days, you were just a talented snowboarder. And then all of a sudden, they're in the gym doing squats. And then all of a sudden they're seeing, performance coaches and sports psychologists. And now it's, everything's really elevated and the margins of who's the best is much narrower. Yeah. But for the average person, they probably don't think about their life in that manner. Oh, I should, consider looking at how I deal with my sport. It's all just kind of fun for them.
Yeah. And also a large part is the escape. It's like, okay, the one thing that I know I need to do is I need to trail run, or I need to ski, or I need to climb. That has to be the only way that I'm able to connect to what that experience is. Right. My whole thing is that, and this is for the everyday mom and dad who is a recreational sport fanatic in one area, to learn that the experience you're getting from that, which is so beautiful, it still comes down to nourishing your relationship with it. And if it's a have to, and that's the only way I'm going to get whatever that is, you're going to notice symptoms in other areas. Right. Or even in that same area, you're not going to be able to perform to the optimal level because there's still a stress response attached to it. Yeah. And so how do you mitigate that so that you can enjoy your sport, but also show up as a very resilient and present parent when your kids are freaking out and you're not reactive to them anymore? It's all coming so what I learned from climbing was, in the moment that I'm experiencing stress. So I've been up, I'd be up on the sword, right? Let's say massive exposure on the Grand Wall, and I would have a complete panic attack, right? This is my past. Yeah. And I would know in those moments, okay, this is a real fight or flight moment. I cannot panic here. I have to reset this. Yeah. And I would do this routine, and I would calm myself down, and I did this practice. I didn't know what I was doing at the time, but in my research after, I realized, okay, what am I doing here is I'm playing with my heart rate variability. I'm playing with the beats of my heart in this moment to reset my nervous system so that I can be present and calm and gain my strength back and gain my resilience back in the same moment it's happening. So I started to realize, wait, I can train my brain to let go of this fear and bring me back into presence through my parasympathetic nervous system. So then I was like, okay, well, this is really something. Nobody told me I could do this when I was diagnosed ADHD and put on Ritalin as a kid and impulsive. And
did you have those similar types of panic attacks before when you weren't on the wall?
Well,
everyday life?
I didn't even know what fight or flight was.
Right.
I think I just lived in it. And that's why I craved the horror movies, because it was like I needed the adrenaline release from it. At least my brain was after that, because my brain just wanted to feel the energy from that. But it wasn't until I started to recognize that I actually can start to shift my relationship with this fight or flight response. Then I started to realize, okay, so what other areas of my life am I being triggered? Maybe not in such an extreme way, but in a way where it would be nice to reset it and not let it control me. And that's where I started to bring it into, I'd be in my car where I used to have so much road rage in Toronto.
Totally.
And I'm like, hey, I can actually calm myself down with the same breath work in this moment and reset this experience.
Yeah.
Wake up in the morning, the kids don't want to eat what I make for breakfast or whatever that scenario is, or they're loud and I get anxious. Okay, I can actually reset it in this moment.
And is there a free quick hack that you give away on the pod here where it's hold your breath for 10 seconds at the top and the bottom or
this breath practice, it's called Heart Flow. And if anybody wants this, I have a video. I'm happy to share. Right. Yeah, they can, you can email me and I'll send you the video. It's a 33-second breath practice. Again, this is what I discovered from climbing. I'd be up there and I'd put my hands on the rock. I'd stick my forehead on the rock. And then I would do this rotation of 3 breaths. And, it was pretty intuitive. It just came. And when I did the research, so it's a 4-second in, 7-second out 3 times.
Right.
And as long as you keep the rhythm clean, it's going to do what's called coherence. It's going to create coherence in the vagus nerve so that all of a sudden you get this beautiful source of communication from your heart to your brain to tell your brain, hey, brain, you're okay.
Yeah.
Let's just let go. Let me bring myself back to this moment. And immediately you start to feel cognitively your brain function changes because your executive function's now back on. So you have more focus and motivation. But physically, you gain strength. You gain endurance. You recover quicker when you play with your heart rate variability. And for me, the primary is just knowing that, as parents, we tend to lose touch with the responsibilities we have every day because we have to keep going. But there's a real cost to our relationships when we're not mindful of how we keep our attention one step ahead all the time. Okay, I got to go to the groceries, and I got to get the groceries, I got to make the dinner, and I got to get to this going. Then we wake up in the morning, I got to get the lunches made, we got to get out the door. There's very little space to live present.
Yeah.
And so it's recognizing that what we experience in sport, especially in the mountain sports, we can learn what that's bringing us and facilitate that to be part of the other areas of our life so that it becomes this continual connection to a natural state of flow. That takes something.
Yeah.
But it's all about training our nervous system to understand that place so that we know it as a feeling.
And so you sort of, were self-investigating into these ideas. Like, did you go into the, the Eastern philosophies? If you can't be happy washing dishes, you can't be happy. The same thing of
totally.
Sense of now. And then I think his name is Mikhail Csikszentmihalyi or something, right? Yeah. The flow state book.
Yeah.
Were you digging into all that stuff when you were back in Toronto, or?
Yeah, I left Toronto. I moved to Golden.
Right.
So Golden, I spent 4 years, and in that environment, you don't live in Golden unless you're. You have to have an occupation of some type, and most people were going for some form of ACMG.
Right.
So I was immediately going out into the mountains with high-end athletes, and I'm still this pre-diabetic guy from Toronto. I just had a friend who said, "Hey, I'm going to Kicking Horse for the winter. Why don't you come with me?" And so all of a sudden, I surrounded myself with these, what I didn't realize were really high-end athletes, and I started to follow their philosophies.
Right.
I started to look at what they were doing, and my roommate, who was an amazing telemarketer, he's still in the backcountry world, and he had all these glass jars in his kitchen, and I grew up on processed food, so I'm looking at all these glass jars, and I'm like, what is all this stuff? And it's all these nuts and seeds and grains and legumes, and so all of a sudden from him I learned about nutrition and all these other ways that I could eat. And then I had another friend of mine he'd get up every day at 5:00 and he would stretch, and he skied every day.
Yeah.
And so I watched him and I could see his routines, and I was like, okay, these were my mentors.
Right.
And following their path, it definitely, I started to understand this idea of a wellness community. It's not just about the sport, it's about how you're approaching everything in life.
Yeah, I like that. I mean, I think it was Blake Jorgensen who told me, people that move to the mountains are either running from something, or looking for something. Right. But you sort of just described how the mountain town, it's not easy to live there, but it attracts all these people that are bringing these sorts of skill sets that you need to survive there or anywhere. And then you fall in with a bunch of them and just start soaking it in.
Yeah. And I think there is a large part of our communities, mountain communities, that are elements of escaping, because we find these sports as a form of escape.
Yeah.
And I feel fortunate that 100%, I used it as an escape for over 10 plus years, climbing specifically. But as I understood my childhood experience with stress and anxiety and depression, I was able to start to see what climbing was doing to give me perspective on my childhood experience. And I was like, okay, so I could just use climbing and escape and make this my life. But I knew there was something more possible in what it was that I was learning about my own biology, that I started to feel more people needed to know that this was something that was possible to do.
Right.
Like it's possible to nourish your relationship with yourself in this moment of life in a way that, I'm not knocking the medical system, but there's not a lot of this kind of discussion out there in terms of how do you manage your own mental stress in the moments of life it's happening, and in a way that gives you access to a deeper feeling of knowing that you're doing the right things, that you're on the right path.
Yeah.
And it's not just going to come from your sport. You have to have your life set up so that you have that engagement in every area.
Is there a bit of a double-sided sword, with the mountain community? Because on the one hand, you do have people that are open to these ideas that are sometimes living them without even realizing it. On the other hand, there's an increase in substance abuse. There's an increased likelihood to, have friends pass away doing what they love, quote unquote. There's an increased likelihood of trauma. Is the mountain town, as healthy as people pretend it is, or is it getting better in the last 10 years, now that more of these conversations are being had?
Yeah. And I think at the core of that question is what is our role as contributors to ourselves, to our families, to our community, and to the world? And it's a great question, because I think that those of us who pursue these sports have an advantage. We have an advantage over most others because a lot of what we do are real fight or flight experiences, where most folks aren't put in those scenarios. Yeah. And so they don't learn how to create a separation from them. They just become their lives. So if you're in a mountain-based community and there is no facilitation in that community to understand the power of what that actually is, I think we're missing out as a community, because there's going to be a number of folks within that community who understand the power of that relationship. And it's our role to deepen our understanding of that and to create an environment for our kids to understand how to manage their stress response so that future generations aren't susceptible to the amount of stressors that are impacting us as they are now.
And talking about those stressors, I mean, you've been doing this for, you said, over a decade.
Yeah.
How did things change with, the inception of Instagram, of being a parent and being able to, while you're taking a dump, see your friends, colleagues, peers, out there crushing it online with their kids, and adding these senses of like, oh, I'm working today. Why am I? It's 25 centimeters. Why am I taking my kid up the mountain? Yeah. Or like, that seems to play a huge role. It gets talked about, but not a lot. Yeah. But how in your practice as a professional, I feel like maybe people bring that up more, or what have you seen?
Well, in terms of the rise of social media and the impact.
and the the FOMO, or the like, I'm not doing it as well as this person, whether that's a parent or an athlete or a traveler or whatever. It's like, everyone else is killing it and I'm not. And
Yeah, and it's unfortunate that, we already know that these social channels are designed specifically to capture our attention. And so ultimately you're going to see representations of other people's life experience that, yeah, I mean, if you're on these gadgets enough, you're not participating in your own life. So of course you're going to start to get sucked into the algorithms of those lives that you're following in a way where it gives the brain a lot of fuel to create more thoughts and feelings around your self-worth and self-esteem.
Yeah.
And that's a problem because it then triggers your nervous system into that fight or flight response that the brain wants you to get into. And now you're not present anymore. Now you're stuck in future-based thoughts of, oh, I wish I was them. I wish I could get that. I want this to be more like this. There's no presence in those kinds of thoughts.
It seems like there's the wellness space is as full as it's ever been. And it's easy for a person to, even in 30 seconds while you're taking a dump, realize that you're not doing enough stretching, you're not eating enough raw foods, you're not spending enough time meditationing, you're not going to the gym as much as you should be, you're not getting enough sunshine, you're not eating enough celery. And if you were going to do all these things that we're constantly bombarded with, which each and every one of them is fantastic for you in its own way, but to be able to do, not even all of them, but at most, you basically have to, that's a full-time job. That's an 8-hour day to maintain your health to the level of what we're being told it should be.
Totally.
Usually by people selling things or quoting Ram Dass on the internet.
Yeah.
How,
well, the system's broken.
Yeah.
Right. So and I'm mindful of what kind of pushback there might be, but a lot of our societal systems are broken because there's a disconnect in terms of how we interact with those systems. And the wellness industry is a perfect example. I mean, all the amount of diets that I was on in my past, because I was told that's what I should do, all the different fitness fads and programs I bought into, they only gave my brain more fuel to create stress around.
Yeah.
And it's because the foundation was broken. The foundation is the relationship between your own nervous system and your brain. That's it. So what's happening in modern society, and this is the idea of human adaptation in the modern world, is the twofold. We have a brain chemistry that feeds off of adrenaline, because the brain is a survival organ, so it just wants energy. And it gets two sources of energy, predominantly hormonal, so that's essentially your adrenaline.
Yeah.
And then you have your neurotransmitters, which the number one is dopamine, and that's defined as the voltage of the brain. And so you're going to notice that a lot of your habits are based off of your brain locked in algorithmic thought patterns to get you to be triggered so that it gets adrenaline. Then it's going to get you to turn to habits, social media, alcohol, drugs, sugar, pornography, shopping, gambling, because it wants your dopamine. And so you start to be stuck in this realm where we start to look for solutions based off the symptoms this creates. And most of us are going to recognize some symptoms, but we then don't realize that these symptoms, so mental symptoms, brain fog, lack of focus, lack of motivation, the physical is inflammatory response, and maybe food allergies, ADHD is the part of the mental side. Maybe it's sleep quality, maybe you're overweight, or there's all these ways that the body and the mind are trying to communicate. And then we start to look at all these solutions that don't really get to the core of the problem.
Yeah, they're solving the symptom, not the problem.
Right. And so you're never going to feel fulfilled if you're stuck in a mindset that's chasing an outcome. It's understanding that the solution is found from nourishing your relationship between your brain and your nervous system. And that's done by doing some very specific practices. Heart flow, the breath practice being the primary.
Yeah. It's physical stuff.
Yeah, and it has to be done in relationship with recognizing that your brain is already stuck in a patterned way of thinking. And so you're going to know based off of when you're feeling triggered where you can start to do some of the work. And so, I the only place I was doing the work forever was climbing.
Yeah.
And when I climbed, I would do the work because I knew if I would breathe in these moments, I would be a completely different person. Well, now you have to recognize, okay, well, I'm frustrated with my partner. And every time I get up in the morning and there's dishes in the sink, shit, they don't care about me. Look at this. There's dishes here. And Okay, well, that's your brain stuck in a pattern. And it's just trying to feed off your stress. This is the moment to reset, reconnect with your energy in a very particular process that I take my clients through that then allows you to start to shift that experience. Not how do I fix this? I got to go, and I'm not knocking counseling and therapy, but it's not a matter of, okay, well, let me go find a counselor to fix this for us, or let me go find this to fix, or let me get on the medication to fix this.
I mean, some of those things would be a path to the same, you doing the work, just getting there a different way. And then some of them would be, maybe not, right? Maybe somebody misunderstanding what your problem is.
Yeah.
Or trying to sell you something. But does what will work on the wall work at the kitchen sink as well, or are they different processes?
No, it's the same thing, which was so, like, I couldn't believe, I mean, I guess I could. It took me a while to understand what I was tapping into, which essentially is just a biological state of flow. It's training my own biology to be in that calm parasympathetic state, which, because of the amount of stresses the brain is under, and then you think of all the cultural norms in society, the things we think are normal that disrupt our biology, our nervous system specifically. Most of us don't know what it feels like to have a relationship with their parasympathetic nervous system, the rest and digest form of how we're supposed to engage life. That used to be the dominant way that we existed for hundreds and thousands of years. Over the last few hundred years specifically, that all transformed because of how modern society stimulates the brain and how we become numb to these changes in the way of life, that we're not recognizing that we're disconnected from that. Obviously, the connection to nature is a big one, but for example, the advent, and I'm not suggesting here at all that we should be living in a cave and forget our modern lifestyle. I love my modern lifestyle. It's trying to adapt to it. So the advent of electricity is the number one disruptor of the human biology, right? I mean, all of a sudden now you wake up in the morning, you turn on your lights. Well, that's going to cause a disruption of your nervous system. I'm not saying not turning on your lights. We all want our lights on, but how do you mitigate the impact of that on your nervous system that you don't even notice is happening? And so it becomes this pattern. The same with having social media now. Social media is a massive disruptor. How do you mitigate that so it's not having such a massive impact on you? And it's not a matter of another diet or another fitness program. It's about learning how to optimize your nervous system in the modern world. And when you do that, sport being one of those ways, you start to realize that you actually can gain back a lot of your mental energy that you never even really experienced at this level, but also the physical side. And so my sporting, I just turned 50, and I just went back to playing hockey. I'm mountain biking 100 days a year, rock climbing, not nearly like I used to, but I'm fitter, like endurance-wise, than I ever have been. And I know it's because of how my nervous system operates and how my mind interacts with the stress of the modern world.
Yeah, and I mean, aging, of course, in our culture, it adds a ton of stress because everyone wants to live forever, right? And everyone has something that'll help you stay young, right? But lots of them aren't. That is a lot of pressure on people, especially in these towns where performance is. How many days did you get this year on the hill, right?
Huge.
Oh, how long? Hey, let me see your Strava, right? How long did it take you? What about that? The gamification on the tracking and the gamification of these recreational activities that used to be to try and be in the moment. Now the everyday person is timing themselves, like what an athlete would do. What do you think about that?
Yeah, and it's the same as just the desire to share what you're doing in social media. I think it's all amazing if you are being very present to how it's interacting with your nervous system response to it.
Right.
So if you notice that, oh my God, I gotta capture this. I gotta make sure I quantify. I do some social media based off of how it flows for me, not any structure.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, if I'm out here and it feels great, I'm going to capture it and share it. Quantification I don't do. Like, I don't track anything personally. I get it in sport how you do. In the realm of nervous system optimization, there's a whole world of this out there. Like, there's a lot of people who are tapping into this, and there's a lot of quantification involved around measuring your heart rate variability and tracking your stress response. And I don't do any of it. All I do is I track based on how I feel. And if I'm feeling off, I know it's because there's something in the way my brain is interacting with my environment around me or internally. And then I'm just being mindful of, okay, now I'm going to do the things, the practices that I know will help to reset it. Obviously, heart flow, the breath practice is one. I do a ton of grounding. So grounding is basically just getting barefoot on the ground or hands on rock or a tree.
Right.
And just, I mean, you think, oh, well, what is that really doing? But there's a massive disconnect from the amount of stress we're under and the free radicals that creates on our cell structure that we don't even realize that if we just put our bare feet on the ground, that practice alone is one of the most powerful anti-inflammatories we have. But yet it's not something that mainstream media is going to tell you to do. And
it doesn't have to. I mean, I think everyone can appreciate walking barefoot on the beach, but it doesn't have to be that extreme. You could just walk around your own yard.
And I think that's a big message is to recognize that if for anybody listening to this and you're not feeling quite right, and your mind is going into a whole big, huge game plan around your health and all these things you think you're going to start doing. It's like, well, there's a natural way to do this. The Mother Nature's law is abundance, and we just have to tune in to giving our nervous system the space to show us what it wants to do for us mentally and physically. We have to train ourselves to give it the space, but the training doesn't require 25 reps of whatever. It's like, no, it just needs the right tools in the right order and a little bit of time commitment. Like when we start working together, it's 10 minutes a day. It's 10 minutes a day of committed activity. But yeah, you're putting your bare feet on the ground. And for a lot of folks, that's a weird thing to do.
Yeah, too hippie. Next thing you'll be wearing brown corduroy overalls. Greatest thing you could ever wear. I want to take it back for a little bit. How did you end up in the Sea to Sky corridor from Golden? What was that transition like? When did that happen?
Yeah, well, so for me it was 2001, 2002, 2003, and then in 2003 I was learning about nutrition. I just got so passionate about nutrition and what I had discovered because I was just such a fast food, processed food eater up to that point. And so as I was learning about nutrition and finding ways to nourish myself, I would go back to Toronto in the off seasons. So essentially spring, fall. And I was teaching my family what I was learning about nutrition. And they said, well, this is really great. You should turn this into a business. And I was like, ooh, okay, interesting. And so that's what got me into wanting to share the knowledge. And I created some trainings, workshops. And I was like, okay, well, I can't deliver these in Golden because there's no audience. And this is before really social media and the whole influencer world took off. And so I realized, okay, well, I come from a corporate background. What if I try selling this to some companies and see if they'll bring me in and do a presentation?
Right.
And so I did one trip to Squamish, and I spent the summer in 2004. And on my rest days, I'd go into the city and I'd hustle. And I'd just walk into different companies, knock on the HR door and say, hey, this is who I am. This is what I can do for you guys. And all of a sudden I got hired, 2-3 times. I was like, oh, this is pretty cool. I might as well move to Squamish now and start this.
I mean, you have a book, The Power of Food. Did this book come out of that or before that?
No, this came out of that experience. Right. Yeah. There was a really, pardon the pun, there was a really big appetite for this knowledge. Like, how do you start to look at food? Like, me with that sugar background, it's how do you look at food in a way where I don't have to eliminate anything, but start to look at in a way of how can I add certain things in that are going to change how I'm feeling about this experience with food. And so the book is really a story of how I started to understand how to use food as an act of love. And at the same time, without eliminating, it changed my cravings for sugar in a way where, yeah, I still eat what I want to eat when I want to eat, but I don't crave it like I used to, especially cookies.
Oh, yeah. Cookies is, what about, mine's gummy Cokes.
Oh, yeah.
Fuzzy peaches, anything with ground up horse hooves in it.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I kind of love that stuff.
Yeah. I don't know. I think they can make those now without the horse, which is nice.
Oh,
for
good.
Sure.
Yeah.
Food's a whole nother can of worms, as far as food security. We're seeing that right now, $5 loaf things of celery and all that. What role does food and food production, obviously, if you think standing on the ground for a few minutes is good for you. You can only imagine how good it is to dig through the dirt
Yeah.
and grow your own food.
Yeah.
Do you incorporate that sort of stuff into your practices? Or?
I do, so the way that I guide my clients is understanding that, okay, first we have to work on the foundation. The foundation is the nervous system energy. And there's 6 steps to that process. Then after you go through that, it's about 3 months. Then you can start to go through this, what I call the optimization phase. And so now you're starting to optimize, but now you can start to look at the other areas of wellness. You can't look at these areas before because they're going to create stress. But once your nervous system is back online, then you can look at your sleep, nutrition, your fitness, your relationships, and your environment around you. And you just learn different ways in those areas that you are in a modern society being disrupted. So food as an example, the amount of, and food security is big. Like I for a long time, I was heavily involved in some groups in Vancouver around food security. But you just think in terms of processed food and the access to sugar, and kids specifically. It's not illegal for kids to eat sugar, but yet it's one of the biggest disruptors of their relationship with themselves.
Yeah.
And so when you understand that there's some things we can do on the nutrition front that will help support the way the nervous system operates, that's what I deliver. It's not, hey, let's learn about nutrition so that you're losing that handlebar.
Yeah, it's really interesting the way you just talked about, you got to have the foundation, and then you can start dealing with those 6 things: nutrition, fitness, sleep, And I think a lot of people are just trying to juggle one of those balls while all the other ones are hitting the floor, and then they're not getting anywhere because they can only keep 1 ball in the air at a time, or 2.
Yeah.
And really you need to have 6 balls in the air. And to do that, you have to have a foundation.
That's it. And you have to have one that is related to how you're responding to stress, because as soon as you try a new diet, it's going to create stress. And if you do not know how to teach your brain to let go of that response, your brain is going to learn it like an algorithm as a source it can use to feed off of your adrenaline. Not the brain's fault. It's designed to do it, but we've never been taught how this is working. And so it's credit to climbing for teaching me how to do this.
So you're a parent and you work with a lot of parents. Do you do stuff with kids too? Have you spoken to groups of kids or
Yeah. I do a lot with my own kids.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, our home environment is really set up in terms of this work. But to this point, I have not worked with kids. I've been asked by many of my clients to work with their teenage kids. We know that there is I'm mindful again of language here, but there's a real disconnect right now for youth in their own relationship to themselves, and their access to escaping, especially through gadgets.
Yeah.
It has a lot to do with us as parents and how we're showing up. And so most of my work now is really just focused on giving parents the right tools to co-regulate their kids. Co-regulation meaning, how does a parent work with their own nervous system in the moment that their child is dealing with something, so that they're not showing up in a way where they're just trying to fix whatever it is, because that's what we want to do for our kids. Let's not go into that energy because that's coming from your stress response. Let's in turn learn how to use your nervous system to co-regulate them so that they can feel safe and feel loved in that moment. And that's right now, that's the main focus, is giving parents those tools. But eventually we would love to have something for the kids and the teens to manage this.
It feels like, most parents, you and I are similar age, our generation of kids, that was, not the norm, right? It was, you're bad, you're punished.
Yeah.
You're good, you're rewarded.
Yeah.
There was love, but it feels like it was a bit different, in the old days than maybe now. But our as a parent, those things are entrenched in us from how we were parented. And so how do you help parents sort of break that cycle of, what was normal for them, you can go a different path or above or beyond?
Yeah. And the number one way is to give them an experience of it, right? Because we don't know what we don't know. And so, I grew up in a very anxious household, and a lot of turmoil, like most families, and how do you find a perspective from that to understand how you you kind of evolved your way of being through that. And the only way I was able to have my own personal understanding of that was to recognize my own patterns. And so for parents, when we go through this process, it's really getting them to start to identify their own patterns of being disconnected from really being present. And you think in terms of their kids. So it's, okay, what are the 3 main patterns that you're disrupted by your kids? Well, most of what it comes up is in the mornings, especially related to the routine of getting out the door.
Yeah.
It's when they get home, and then it's a bedtime routine. And so, okay, well, let's just look at those 3 and start to learn how to create presence in the way you're being in those moments. And then with the right tools, again, and their commitment to doing the practices, they don't take a lot of time, but ultimately it leads them to really quickly feeling an experience with their interaction with their kids that's different from what they have had to that point. It's this deeper, it's really related to emotional intimacy. It's this idea of, okay, so I can actually be present in my own emotions I'm having in this moment, but I'm not reacting to them.
Which is, easier said than done when you've told someone for the 6th time, put their fucking shoes on.
Well, and plus it's been a pattern that you've reacted to forever. So now all of a sudden your kid's at the door throwing a tantrum about their clothes. How are you supposed to do something different? Well, I strongly encourage folks to recognize the ability to utilize co-regulation as a fresh way to experience this. Because once you experience the way your kids react to that, because once you're not reacting and you're really holding this really clean biological presence, which the steps are there to train this, the kid stops reacting because they're not being fed anymore by your reaction. So all of a sudden their brain starts to let go because it's not getting the energy from you anymore. So it opens up this space for something new to be in that space. That takes practice.
How do we, this, even being able to come to you for help, or, even having access to fresh food, not everybody has that, right? Not everybody has the funds to, get help. Not everybody can even, if somebody's vehicle breaks down, in some places, it's a food desert and the only real food available is at the 7-Eleven or the Jack in the Box.
Yeah.
Do you do much work with people that are, under-resourced to be able to help themselves?
Yeah.
Or what do you suggest to people that maybe you're like, hey, this sounds great, but I don't have, I can't come and do a 3-month course, or,
yeah, for sure.
Or I don't have access to, the $5 fresh groceries, or
yeah.
Is there an aspect of your, philosophies and ideas that you can share with people that somehow?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's always evolving, but, for me, it's just important to get the energy out there of what this is and what's possible. And so obviously, whether it's the book, whether it's, a live in-person event, which now we're able to start doing again, which is so fantastic.
Yeah.
I used to do a ton of grocery tours at Nestor's. They'd bring me in there and I'd do an hour tour. And so I'm starting to look at what options I can start to present again in person, because I think it's such a beautiful way to interact.
Yeah.
And also online, I've got some things online. I have a YouTube channel that, again, I'm very mindful of my stress response to those. So, but there's lots of content that I've produced that's out there. But if anybody's really interested in engaging this process, it's definitely one that will challenge you, and it does require a commitment, but it shows pretty quick a new way to start to interact with your world around you. I do have a free download for anybody. What I talked about is in terms of the foundation work. There's 6 steps to that. And so if we're okay with that, I'd love to give everybody who wants access to that.
We can put a link in the description for sure.
That's great.
Yeah.
So that's free, but it'll show you at least those first 6 steps, so that if you choose to give it a shot, then you'll know what to do, and it doesn't cost anything.
And I imagine the library, your book's probably in the library. Like, the library is a great resource for people. And
Totally. Yeah.
So I have on this book in front of me 100 Essential Recipes for Abundant Health and Happiness. For you, what's your comfort food? After a long day and you're just going to maybe throw it out the window and just have something that you really want.
Yeah.
What do you go towards?
What if it's not a food? What if it's a drink?
Yeah, well, I mean, the drink counts too.
Yeah. No, listen, it's not about perfection, right? And I'm not here to putting myself up on a pedestal. No, I love a fat tug,
Right.
give me a nice, and I went from tall cans to small can now. And so, at the end of the day, I'll have a fat tug and hang out. And, if I'm going to go for some sort of food, a comfort food, it's not so much the sugar anymore. I like a good bag of chips.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You talked about, are you still a horror movie guy, or?
No. Oh boy. That was weird, man. Like, okay. I understand what that was and the mechanisms of what that was, but it took me a long time to really understand, why am I so infatuated with Mike Myers and Freddy Krueger and, and it was Jason Voorhees.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
How do I know all these names?
I love those guys.
Right?
Yeah.
So, that it was such an escape for me. I went through a lot of emotional, not even knowing it, but now I understand the emotional distress I was under. And a lot of it came from a lack of feeling loved, a lack of feeling connected, mostly to my father.
Yeah.
And so that just became my main way to feel.
And when you were delving into those films, it was, VHS, DVD, Home Alone.
Yeah.
It wasn't going to the theater. It wasn't a shared human experience.
No.
thing.
It was, I'd have 2 VCRs and I would record everything. So I had hundreds of movies. And that was my escape, was just sitting down watching movies. And it just so happened that whenever I would look through my stack of 100, 200 movies, I always picked the horror. And again, at that time, I had no idea what I was doing, what it was that my brain was up to, but it wanted that rush.
I talked to you last week. You'd just come back from the Vancouver International Mountain Film Festival.
Yeah.
Is film still a part of your life? I know you attend. Do you work on films, or do you? What are your thoughts on the way outdoor films have gone in the last 10 years? Or?
Yeah, I mean, I love it. I think there was that period of 15 years through living in Golden, and then when I first came to Squamish, where myself and my wife, Susie, we did not miss anything. We were at every event.
Yeah.
And I think over the last, maybe since COVID, really, so it makes sense that it's kind of impacted the desire to show up to them all. But we did have this conversation. Like, I was there with my good buddy Mark Sky, who did the Infinity Loop, which you should have him on. That guy's amazing. But we were chatting on the way back, just in terms of the progression of film. And I think that what's so beautiful about what I saw at VIMP this year, and I think it's pretty common, the storytelling it's always been great, and it's still the core of everything. So even though we have all this new technology, and we know with as far as the what are those, the cameras that fly around?
Drones.
Yeah, the drones. Obviously you get some really great footage from those and whatnot, but the story aspect of what we deliver through our mountain cultures, I mean, it's super emotional stuff.
Yeah.
Really beautiful things that we, and some of those, and one of the ones that we watched, dealt with suicide and was really beautifully done. And you think, oh my God, what a tragedy. But yet there's so much beauty in the emotional expression of what was being shared in the film. It was really great.
I mean, it's really only, I guess, the last 30 years where, the rise of digital technology, where anyone can make a film, especially now.
Yeah.
And people are getting good at it, right? Because you don't need to know how to cut actual film strip and develop it and pay for the transfer. The VIMP, the Banff, that was a thing for me as a kid. Every year, best of Banff, right? You couldn't miss that.
Yeah.
But also, Greg Stump, Warren Miller, the snow porn, what they call it now. It's kind of gone, but it still has a role to play in getting the adrenaline going anyhow.
Yeah. Hey, listen, every time I sit down and chat with friends, like I got some good friends that are in the industry, whether it's Christian Bejan and, your neighbor right around the corner.
Yeah.
I love hearing what they're up to. I love hearing where they're going off on their next adventure, talking with Jimmy Martinello once in a while and hearing where all these guys are off to. It's, not going to deny that I'd love to be out there and doing all those things, but, I love to be able to then, when they come back and they chop it all together and present it, it's pretty spectacular stuff.
It's the mountain culture. That's the norm. The trip slideshow, the stuff like that. That it's been happening one way or another. The whole time.
Yeah.
For a lot of us.
Yeah, and I think of my days in the cubicle in Toronto. Compared to what my life experience is now. And, all the credit goes to all of us that are out there chasing these passions, and really, really putting ourselves on the line and exploring what's possible. And, they're great lessons for how we can start to look at all the areas of our life and see if we're not feeling as fulfilled as we would like in the other areas. How do we elevate it so our whole life experience has that same tangible fulfillment that we get from getting out there on our adventures?
Well, we're going to put some links in the description, but if somebody wants to, learn more about you, learn more about what you do, if they're driving in a car, they can't write it down right now, where do we send them?
Yeah, my website's best spot. It's clearimpact.io, clearimpact.io. And yeah, happy to connect with anybody who's got some value from our time together.
Sick. The book's called The Power of Food. Adam Hart, thanks so much for your time.
Thanks, Feet. Appreciate it.
Okay, well, there you go. Get your bare feet on the ground, people, and get your hands on the rock. And don't forget to breathe. To learn more about Adam and get a copy of his 6-step Unleash Your Energy roadmap, visit clearimpact.io. You just give Adam your email, and he hooks you up. Thanks, Adam, for the talk. Thanks, Shirai Rules, for the voiceovers off the top. Thanks, Adrian Gendro, for the guitar licks. And thank you, dear listener, for listening, for giving us an hour of your attention and your ear holes, and for remembering to check out the website, mountainlifemedia.ca. Maybe even check out the store, check out the old pods. We'll be back in 2 weeks with a new pod. I mean it this time, because Colin will be back, with a chat with adventure explorer Mario Rigby. Mario walked in kayaks from Cape Town to Cairo, so you know that dude has stories. Until then, mountain lifers, keep your tips up and don't be afraid to boogie down. Leave the campsite better than you found it, and always live it up.